truth is all out there. They cannot no longer get ahead of the truth. So it's a full-on 24/7 abuse.
I am a husband, a father, a lawyer, a Christian, and a proud Canadian. I started this series because it was clear that our nation needs truth. Not just another biased narrative, but real information of substance. We need access to facts and the freedom to think for ourselves. I'm Leighton Grey, and this is Grey Matter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Grey Matter. Well, today we have on the show the type of guest I love having on. Actually, this is the second time he's been on, but the first time with us on Return to Reason is hockey great Theo Fleury. Of course, Theo is not just a famous hockey player who had a very illustrious NHL career. He's now become a media personality. He started a media company. He's a motivational speaker, and he's actually authored 2 books. And so what we plan to do with Theo today is to take him through some of his more recent activities and also canvass some of his very candid opinions about some of the things that are happening in the NHL today. So thank you for being with us today, Theo Fleury. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
So Theo, I wonder if we could start off with talking a little bit about your podcast and this new media company that you've started with Mr. Bourgault and Jamie Salé. What was the sort of the genesis of this? How did you get started with it?
Well, I first and foremost, for many, many years, the media has been lying to us. And, it's really hard to find out what exactly the truth is nowadays. And so, I was just kind of going along, doing my thing, before COVID, I was traveling at least once a week somewhere in North America to talk about, the subject of trauma, mental health, and addiction, and how it's all connected and all that. And then, COVID came and, shut all that down. And so I was kind of at home minding my own business, obviously engaged in COVID-19 and trying to discern the truth of, what was actually going on, which then to me exposed the Conservative Party of Canada being as corrupt as the Liberal Party of Canada. And so, there's really no political party in Canada that represents my voice, which is the true blue, patriot, loving, free speech, get the hell out of my life government person, right? And so, we said to ourselves, what the hell are we going to do now that, our aspirations of all going to Ottawa and turning this country around, they put a wrench in it. So I said to Joe, why don't we start a little media company here in Calgary? And, K's for Truth was already a not-for-profit charity that Joe had set up in 2020, just basically, because they were suppressing therapeutics and they weren't talking about the dangers of wearing masks. And so that's how K's for Truth sort of got started. And then because I had a relationship with Jamie Salé, and she was speaking out, I talked to her on the phone and said, why don't you come join us? And she agreed to do that.
She's really taken a lot of abuse, hasn't she, Theo?
Yeah, anybody who sits on the right has taken way too much abuse from the communist, people that, I had no idea that there was this many communists in Canada. It's mind blowing how many communists there are in this country, and it's a shame.
I know you commented, I follow you on Twitter. I know that you commented on the government of Canada's Pride season. which has our national flag and the rainbow colors. And you also were very outspoken about an incident that happened, or a series of incidents that happened this past season. In fact, I watched an interview you did with Tucker Carlson on his now defunct show on Fox News. Former NHL player Theo Fleury calls out the league for pushing the woke agenda. You want to talk about what you meant there and why you spoke up? It's something about the over-politicization of sports.
Well, I didn't call out anything.
No.
You know, I was asked the question, and I said, you know, politics has no place
Right.
in sports at all, right? And you know, I didn't know that hockey wasn't inclusive. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I don't, you know, if you have the ability to play, if you have the means to play,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
greatest sport ever invented in the history of our planet, right? And but you know, this is you know, this is the woke agenda that they're trying to push on all of us, right? And you know, sports and being a fan of sports is a way to check out for a few hours, right? And when we bring politics into sports, it's a disaster, right? It's a disaster. And you know, there was few guys out there that made choices and decisions. And you know what the other side doesn't that wants is they don't want you to have any choices. They don't
Right.
want you to have a voice. They don't want you to have an opinion. It's our way or the highway, right? And that's, you know, that's not the Canada that I grew up in, right?
Nor me.
You know, I grew up in a small town in Manitoba where as I was playing hockey, I was instilled with some incredible morals and values. You know, the first one being respect, right? Respect. And we live in a world today where we have completely lost respect, you know, because of you know, this divisive politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't see any of that. You know,
Yeah.
I don't see, you know, that respect that we had, you know, when we were kids. You know, another thing we learned was, you know, loving and caring for our teammates,
Yeah.
right? That everybody has a role on the team, and that role is essential in helping you win, right? You know, everybody has a role. And then the third thing we learned was consequences. That we are all responsible for our choices, actions, and our decisions. And the reason why we're in this show is because no politician has had to face any consequences for his choices, his actions, and his decisions. And that's why we're in the state that we're in. Is because those three core moral values and principles have completely been wiped out. And Trudeau says we don't have any identity. That's Canadian identity.
Yeah.
Respect, loving and caring for your neighbor, and accountability.
You know,
that's gone.
It's interesting that you say that, because, you know, and one of the reasons why your comments on this are really interesting is because part of where we derive our culture in Canada is hockey. And there's a couple of quotations here. Here's one from Jean Beliveau, who is another one of my dad's favorite players, and a really, really classy gentleman. I've read about him, and I mean, really spent the whole rest of his life after he finished playing hockey just helping people. But he said this: play with passion and heart. If you don't carry passion into sport, or into any job for that matter, you won't succeed. And then here's Bobby Orr, one of my hockey heroes. I'm sure he's one of yours too. He said this: I've been gifted. The world is full of people who not only haven't been gifted, but have had something taken away from them. All I have to do is see one of them, some little girl who can't walk, and then I don't think I'm such a hero anymore. I think that compared to them, I'm a very small article. We've lost some of that in Canada, haven't we?
Yep. Well, you're talking about two very humble gentlemen, right? Who realized that, it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of the National Hockey League. But
And to be a Canadian.
for sure. But what
Yeah.
we've lost is that without fans, there is no us.
Right.
Right? Without fans buying tickets and jerseys and hockey cards and all these things, there is no us. So, and I learned from probably, I had the greatest 22 mentors I could have possibly had when I got to the Calgary Flames, because that team was full. The 89 Stanley Cup team was full of great hockey players, but more importantly, that hockey team was filled with great human beings, and that's why we won. Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't because of what happened on the ice. It was because we had a lot of quality human beings, like from the top.
Sure.
Our ownership group with Harley Hodgkiss and BJ and Doc Seaman and everybody all the way down, Cliff Fletcher, Al Coates, Al McNeil, coaching staff, people who worked in the dressing room, because we built a culture, where we cared about each other. Right. And what Trudeau is selling is absolute lunacy and insanity. Has no core value, no core Canadian values whatsoever.
They even took it out of the coat of arms recently.
Yeah.
How does they changed, the Liberals changed we had a perfectly good flag. They changed the flag back in the late 60s. Liberals did. Trudeau, one of the first things he did when he came into office, he changed our national anthem. And now just unilaterally just changed our national coat of arms to take all of the sacred religious, symbols out of that without even consulting the Canadian public. That's to me, that's appalling. Really bothered me.
Well, I just happened to find this little tidbit of information. So let me put this question to you, Leighton. So if you were elected the Prime Minister of Canada, and in the first few weeks or months of you being in power, this is what Trudeau did. He changed the consent from having anal sex from 16 to 14. That was one of the first things that he did as Prime Minister of Canada.
Right.
And nobody even knows about that.
Right.
Right. And now we have all these drag shows where kids are being groomed. Well, the kids aren't being groomed. The adults are being groomed right now. Right. And grooming, as I understand, is against the law.
Right.
So where is Child and Family Services? Where is City Police? Where's the RCMP? Instead, they're arresting the protesters who are basically pointing out the fact that you guys are breaking the law.
So you're talking about Calgary and Yodi Gond. I know you were very outspoken against this. I actually got in trouble myself because in my home city of Cold Lake, I spoke out against this. And while I was in talking with City Council, my car was vandalized. And actually, the Cold Lake City Councilor, who was there and argued with me during my presentation, he actually posted something on Facebook that said that the most dangerous person at a drag queen show, a kid show, is Christian with a gun. And I made a complaint to City Council that they summarily dismissed. So this is a serious problem, isn't it? I mean, suppression of peaceful, disobedience or to speak truth. Really, it's a suppression. It's a suppression of objective truth, and particularly against. It seems to be against people who hold traditional Christian values. Would you agree?
100%. Yeah. The Bible predicted this, and we are here. This is the last fight versus good versus evil. And if we lose this, Scary times, man.
Yeah.
Scary times. And that's what people don't understand. I've had two very successful careers. Okay. I was a professional athlete, and then I was an author and motivational speaker. This is the last place that I want to be, Leighton. This is the last thing that I want to be doing in my life. Right. I'd rather be in Arizona playing golf every day, enjoying the fruits of my labor.
Right.
So when people call me a crazy conspiracy theorist and whatever, no, that's not it. I'm here because I recognize from my past lives and all the pain and suffering that I've gone through in my whole entire life that I spent 20 years of my life getting healing, becoming a better human being, all this so that I can die. Because that's the ultimate goal.
Right.
They want us all dead. They want us all dead.
Mm-hmm.
And you can call me crazy all you want, but trust me, I've been there. I've been there. And I'm speaking up for my children and my future grandchildren, because if the path that we're going down, they have no future. None.
Mm-hmm.
Zero.
It's quite shocking that according to recent polling, about 2/3 of Canadians are actually in favor of medically assisted death. How did that happen? Is it part of sort of a psyop, or is this
No.
as you say, an existential thing that's operating on a spiritual level, the way Tucker Carlson was describing recently, and which evidently was instrumental in getting him fired from Fox?
Yeah. So for the last 15 years, I've spent my time working in the field of trauma, mental health, and addiction. Okay. And I believe that trauma is at the core of every single issue we have in society is unresolved trauma. Okay.
Right.
And, when I'm out there working, all I see is pain and suffering. Okay. And we're very aware that there is a mental health crisis, right? I believe it's the real pandemic on the planet, not COVID-19. Mental illness is the number one thing. And then, we understand that there's an addiction problem and an addiction issue on the planet. Well, we've done a really poor job in society creating safe, vulnerable spaces for people to talk about what happened to them, right? Because I carried a secret around for 27 years of my life, okay? And it almost killed me. And then in 2009, I wrote Playing with Fire and told that secret to the world. And by doing that, it completely changed my life and completely changed the course of my life. Why? Because I found my tribe. I found my tribe of people. Because everywhere I went on the book signing tour and, subsequently doing speaking engagements and workshops and all this stuff, was people saw me as a safe person, that they could come to me and tell me that story, their Me Too story, right? And so when you're traumatized and you're not on a path of healing, guess what? You can't think critically, because all you're doing is surviving day by day.
So you can't see the conspiracy theory.
You can't see the patterns.
Right.
Because we're basically in an abusive relationship with our government, right?
Yeah.
Nobody talks about systemic government abuse. We talk about systemic racism. We talk about systemic da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about systemic government abuse. And what does abuse do? It causes trauma.
Right.
And what does trauma do? Trauma leaves us in emotional pain and suffering.
Right.
So how do we deal with the emotional pain and suffering? Well, we tend to gravitate towards the dark side of life and get involved in addictive behavior as a coping mechanism to suppress the emotional pain and scars that are left behind from trauma.
So Theo, you're an agent for change. You've been involved as a motivational speaker, and now as a media person, as a podcaster. What's next for you? What is your next challenge? Where do you have your eyes focused on in terms of your next steps in your life and in your career?
Well, like I said, I'd love to be retired, but that's not in the cards.
Are they ever going to put you in the Hockey Hall of Fame? I mean, you check some of the boxes,
Never,
right?
never, not gonna happen.
Indigenous. I mean, you're a victim of,
Mhm.
but of course, you think that your views are keeping you out. I mean, on
First
your
of
stats
all,
alone, you should have been
100%.
in there, 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it's the political landscape that we're in, right? I didn't know that Hockey Hall of Fame was a political entity, right?
Right.
I thought it was based on what you did on the ice, but apparently not. So
Yeah.
in my own mind, I'm already there,
Right.
right? And that's
You
all
have
that
the
matters.
respect of your peers, obviously, right?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Peter Marr actually said this to me one time, and he's the guy that announced every
Oh
single thing
yeah. Brilliant
that
announcer. Oh
yeah.
yeah. Legendary.
So he said to me, he goes, "There's 15 guys in or there's 15 guys that averaged a point a game in the regular season and a point a game in the playoffs over 1,000 games." He says 14 of them are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Who do you think the one guy isn't who accomplished that feat? I said,
Yeah.
yours truly. He's like, yeah.
Yeah. There's got to be at least half dozen guys off that 89 team that are in the Hall of Fame, right? At least. I mean, McGinnis is
Yeah.
in there, Lanny's in
Lanny,
there,
McInnes, Newendike,
Gilmore,
Gilmore, Mullen.
Joey Mullen. There's probably more than six. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
it was
sure Gary
amazing.
Suter's probably getting in there at some point.
It was amazing.
Gary Roberts. Yeah, is Gary
Yeah.
Roberts in yet? He's got to
No.
go in eventually.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
there's lots, so
incredible.
and I understand they only put 4 guys a year in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So, maybe I'll be in there someday, who knows? But I don't spend all day thinking about it,
No, no.
I have a bigger mission in life, and that's to help people who've been traumatized in their life, deal with their mental health and addiction issues that come with having experienced trauma in their life. So I can see myself continuing to do that, and ultimately just discerning the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've experienced pretty much everything that life has to offer, right?
Right.
And
Except
I'm
maybe
still
good government.
well, I'm still here and I'm still alive, right?
Right.
So that tells me that God has a bigger plan for me,
Right.
and He reveals that to me almost on a daily basis, right? Um, you know, I believe there are no coincidences in this world, and today my path was supposed to go across your path, and vice versa, right? There are no coincidences. Everything,
Yeah.
you know, there's a plan, right? And the only time my plan went sideways is when I was in control and trying to
Interesting.
control
Interesting.
my life. And
Interesting.
now that
Yeah.
I've given up that control and turned that over, God always puts me in situations where I can help people, right? Because ultimately that was what Jesus did while he was on the planet, right? He was not comparing myself to him in any way, shape, or form, but we're all God's disciples, and God gives us only as much as we can handle. And obviously he believes this time and space that we can all handle this. And ultimately, God wins,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The
And
battle's
I
won.
have to have
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of faith in
Yeah.
that statement, right?
Yeah. That's a
And
great That's a great message that the battle is won, right?
yeah,
That it's
yeah.
won. Yeah. Yeah.
And if the communists want to take me out, no problem. I'm going to a way better place than right here, right now. I guarantee you that.
Well, you beat the communists on the ice, so
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Theo, this has been a great conversation again with you. I'd like to finish off with talking a little bit about your two books. The first one is Playing with Fire, which has a really nice foreword by Wayne Gretzky. And then your other book is a really, really fascinating book called Conversations with a Rattlesnake. And this is the description here is this is from about 9 or 10 years ago. This book was released. Theo Fleury is as passionate about understanding trauma, which you've talked about today, and healing, as he was about being a pro hockey player in the NHL, Olympics, and World Juniors. So these two books, they sort of, in a way, mirror what's happened in your real life, right? The first book is kind of about your hockey life and how that began and shaped, and then your second book is about this next chapter, series of chapters about your life that you're still living out, right?
Yeah.
Is that a fair description?
Yeah. So the first book is the story, and the second book's the healing, right?
Right. Theo, thank you so much for sharing with us again today, your mind and your heart and your soul. I'm really looking forward to the new book. Keep up
Yeah.
all of the wonderful work you're doing. And I do follow your podcast. I enjoy it immensely. But yeah, thanks again for being our special guest here today. It's been a real pleasure once again.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure too. And, thank you for helping to bring some sort of justice to the world where there isn't any. If we could just get one arrest, this thing would be all over.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet, but
Yeah.
hopefully soon.
God will provide. We have to keep up the prayers.
Yes, absolutely. For sure.
Thanks, Theo.
Okay, man. Take care.